So here's the crushed up blueberry leaves that I'm going to use for my pigment. I'm going to coat the scabbard and handle with lacquer and then sprinkle these on. And it doesn't really matter if you get it on the metal part, because that can just be scratched away with like a piece of wood, because you know, lacquer isn't that tough. It's not gonna permanently affix it to the metal. You can just apply enough force to kind of scrape it off the metal without kind of damaging the steel. Although that being said, I'm gonna try to keep as much of it on the wood as possible. So let's see how it goes. I'm using kind of an artist's brush for like oil painting, but that's just because I got them really cheap on like Marshall's or something, so it's a good price. Man, that's a really kind of brilliant red. It's kind of almost like a pastel red, but it'll darken up in the lacquer because there's no real light shining on it. So let's go. Moment of truth. Pour some on here. See what happens. That looks kind of stupid. Let's see, I'll put some more in here. There's like a little spot that I missed. Okay, maybe a couple more spots I'll just get with my hand. Okay, so of course it's not gonna like 100% cover it all, and then after this you have to tap on it just so, hopefully not take it off of the wood, but oh, come on, stay on there. So once it dries, you just have to rub your finger kind of over it to get all the loose stuff off, because I want to keep this layer pretty thin. And there's some areas where it didn't quite cover, but I think that's always going to happen. And then on the next coats, that'll kind of get cleared up. So yeah, and that stuff will just kind of roll right off of the steel. Okay, so now I'm going to put this stuff back in the bag, and then do the scabbard. Next coat of lacquer, and this will be a little bit more tricky because I have these areas around the curry cotta to fill, and as well as the curry cotta itself. I don't know, I think I'm just gonna leave the inside just regular wood. If I do get any leaves in there, I can just take them out with a little file. Getting the hole perfect on these curry cottas is always kind of tricky. Out. Actually, there's some stuff in that. Okay. Pour this in. Might as well just do most of the bag, and then kind of sprinkle it over. Going to the state fair and making some salt on your corn. All right. This area here, curry cotta, all the little facets, and I'll just kind of sprinkle it on the rest of the way. So now I'm going to, it says 2 hours to dry, and of course 24 hours to cure. Here are the two pieces drying up. You can see the kind of red color. Although once I put progressive layers of lacquer on top of it, it'll turn a much darker color, and all the stuff that's on the steel right there can be just scraped off. First coat has dried. I gave it a couple hours to do that, and now it has, you know, kind of lightly dusted with the leaves. So what I'm going to do now is kind of brush it with my fingers just a little bit and to get the excess off, because if you don't get this stuff off, then you're just going to create little mountains of blueberry leaves, and the texture just won't look right. I realized that because I'm putting a paintbrush on some leaves that might fall off, I'm going to use a separate container this time around. The increased surface area of the leaf covering means that it'll actually use a lot more lacquer. Wow, that color's getting dark, you know, from the wet lacquer. So I'll just do the whole thing because you just cycle it back anyways. Wow, that is a really nice red. I wasn't really expecting that, but I'm glad. Now that's what I'm talking about. This area is pretty much completely covered, except for a couple spots I see. Like there's a little bald spot there, maybe one right there, and on the top here. But other than that, it got some pretty good coverage. So what I'm going to do next is kind of rub a little bit of this stuff off and all the extra crap, and then I'm going to actually a lot less is coming off, so that's a good sign. And I'm going to put another lacquer layer on it and just kind of sprinkle on the areas that need a little bit more. Now set this to the side and get some areas that still don't have a lot. So about right there. So a couple areas here, kind of near the ends really. So for this one, I just pretty much put a coat on it and sprinkled a little bit of stuff here. I don't know if you can see that on the camera, the difference between this light area and the rest of the dark. It's a lot more of a deep red here. So now that all the layers are essentially complete, I can just kind of brush it on. Not as heavy as before because the lacquer already filled up a lot of the space before. Alright, I gave it some time to dry, and now what I'm going to do is take a little piece of copper wire that I hammered out flat. This is just like a little scrap piece, and then I'm going to scrape it on this steel fitting so that I can scrape all the leaves off of it. So what I'm going to do here is just start kind of scraping. Here's the Tanto sanded up. It still needs a couple more layers of lacquer to complete it. Alright, the next coat is done. It's getting shinier and shinier. Oh man, I really love this texture too. It's looking great. I'm gonna put one more coat on it. And also there's like a little area there that needs to be filled up, so I think the next coat will fill that up, and then it should be good. And I might as well end up lacquering over the steel anyways, because it'll just protect it from rust. So go ahead and do that. Alright, everything's looking really good with these now. I lacquered the handle up. I think I might need to do it one more time. Right over here it's feeling a bit rough. But in some areas there's like a little bit of texture, but other than that it's almost smooth, which is really interesting. I kind of like that, but I also kind of like the more textured areas too. So I'll kind of assemble it a little bit to see how it looks. So that's kind of the Tanto there, its handle, and the sheath. There. Looks pretty good. I don't think the light levels are very good for filming this stuff right now, but in my eyes this is looking really good. Kind of a really vibrant red. Alright, time to get high on lacquer fumes.